The ocean does not explain itself to anyone. It does not argue with the shore. It just moves, with a weight so deep that everything in its path feels it without being told to. That is silent power, and most people are leaking it every single day. Every unnecessary word, every anxious reaction, every time you over-explained a decision nobody asked about, every moment you chased approval from someone who was never going to give it. All of it, quietly draining the very thing you are trying to build. Silent power is what happens when the leaking stops. Today we go through 6 rules that will change how you speak, how you carry yourself, and how people experience you, without you saying a single extra word. Stay until the end. Do not skip anything. Each rule connects to the next. Like this video, subscribe, share it with one person who needs this today. If you are ready to stop leaking your power today, type this in the comments right now. My silence is my strength. Number 1. Silence is not empty. It is full. Lao Tzu wrote in the Tao Te Ching, "Those who know do not speak. Those who speak do not know." Now that sounds extreme on the surface, and taken too literally, it would just mean nobody should ever say anything. But there is a much deeper and much more practical truth buried inside those words. And it is this: the person who truly understands something does not feel the need to constantly announce that they understand it. Their actions carry the message. Their presence carries the weight. The knowing shows in ways that do not need words. Most people believe silence is the absence of something, like it is just empty space waiting to be filled. They feel genuinely uncomfortable when a conversation pauses for more than a few seconds. They start to fidget mentally. They scramble for something, anything, to say just to make that silence stop. Not because they have something worth saying, but because the silence itself makes them anxious. That anxiety is important to notice, because what it is really saying is this: I am not comfortable just being here without performing. I need to produce words to feel like I am contributing. I need noise to feel safe, and that is exactly the habit that leaks power. Here is the reality. Silence is not empty. Silence is one of the most loaded things a human being can offer in any conversation. Think about the moments in your own life when silence hit you harder than words. When a doctor paused before speaking after reading your test results. When someone you loved went quiet and you felt it in your whole body before they said a single thing. When a person you respected sat in a meeting and said nothing while everyone else scrambled to fill the air. And somehow that person controlled the entire energy of the room. Silence communicates. It just does it without words. And in many situations, it communicates far more accurately than words ever could. Here is the specific way this connects to your power. When you speak constantly, every thought, every reaction, every half-formed opinion, your words start to lose weight. People stop really listening. They know more words are coming, so they wait for the next one instead of actually sitting with what you just said. You become background noise, familiar, easy to tune out. But when you speak less, when you let silence sit comfortably, when you only open your mouth when you have something that is actually worth saying, something changes in how people receive you. They pay attention differently. They lean in slightly. They know from experience that when you speak, it means something. They have learned that you do not waste words, and that quiet reputation is one of the most powerful things you can build. There is also something that happens inside you when you practice this. When you stop filling every silence, you start to hear things you were missing before. You notice more. You read situations more accurately. You pick up on what people are actually feeling underneath what they are saying. That kind of awareness, the kind that only comes from being genuinely quiet, is something that naturally sharpens your judgment over time. The first rule is not about becoming mute. It is about understanding that silence is a tool, a precise one, and right now, most people are not using it at all. Less words, more weight. That is the whole idea. Number 2, what you do not say protects you. The ancient philosopher Zeno of Citium said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we should listen more and talk less." But here is what that wisdom points toward that most people miss entirely. The things you choose not to say can protect your entire life in ways that no security system, no strategy, and no carefully worded speech ever could. Most people think being open is always a strength, and in the right places, with the right people at the right time, it absolutely is. Real openness with trusted people is one of the most valuable things in a human life. But there is another version of openness that quietly works against you. It is the version where you tell everyone your plans before they are real, where you share your goals with people who have not earned that information, where you explain your decisions in detail to people who were never going to support them, no matter how clearly you explained. Here is something worth sitting with carefully. Every single time you tell someone what you are building before it is built, you open a door for their doubt to walk in. And other people's doubt is one of the most quietly destructive forces you can carry in the early stages of anything you are trying to create. Not because their doubt is necessarily true, but because it plants itself in your mind. It finds the corner where your own uncertainty already lives, and it makes itself comfortable there. And then on the days when things get hard, and things always get hard, that planted doubt starts to whisper. You find yourself questioning things you were clear about before you said anything. This is why so many people announce big goals in January and have completely forgotten about them by March. It is not laziness, it is that they shared the vision before it had roots, before it was strong enough to survive contact with other people's skepticism. Silent people are not secretive out of fear or paranoia. They are selective out of wisdom. They understand that different stages of a thing require different levels of protection. A seed does not grow faster because you keep digging it up to show people how it is doing. It grows in the dark, in private, with patience. And then one day you see the result above the ground, and it is real, and it is permanent, and no amount of early doubt could have stopped it because the doubt never got access to it. This rule also applies to your personal life, not just your goals. Every relationship you are in, every struggle you are working through, every part of your inner life that is still fragile and still forming. Not everything needs to be shared. Not every wound needs a public audience. Not every private decision needs a committee to vote on it. Choosing what to share and what to protect is not deception. It is discernment. It is one of the most mature and self-respecting things a person can do. The practical version of this rule is straightforward. Share your results. Keep your process quiet. Let the finished thing speak instead of the plan. And be very honest with yourself about whether you are sharing something because it genuinely serves the relationship or because you are uncomfortable holding it alone. Most of the time the answer is the second one, and most of the time the right move is to hold it a little longer. Number 3, stop reacting. It is costing you more than you know. Viktor Frankl, a man who survived conditions that most of us cannot begin to imagine, wrote this: "Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." He wrote that inside a Nazi concentration camp. He had everything taken from him: his family, his freedom, his safety, his future, everything except one thing: the space between what happened to him and how he chose to respond to it. And he held onto that space like it was the only thing keeping him alive, because in a very real sense, it was. Now think about how most of us use that same space in our daily lives. Someone says something rude online, and within 30 seconds we are typing a response. Someone cuts us off in traffic and our mood is ruined for the next 20 minutes. A friend says something careless and we replay it for 3 days. A plan falls apart and we spiral immediately into frustration and self-doubt. We hand that space away constantly. We do not even realize we are doing it. And every time we do, we hand our power along with it. Here is the honest, direct truth about reacting without thinking. When you react immediately to something that upset you, you are not being authentic. You are being controlled. The thing that triggered you, whether it is a person, a situation, a comment, a setback, has now taken the wheel of your behavior. You are no longer choosing how you show up. Something outside of you is choosing for you. And that is an expensive trade. Because every reaction that costs you your composure also costs you your credibility. Every time you lose your calm in public, you show people exactly which buttons to press to destabilize you. You teach them how to get a reaction out of you. And some people, not all but some, will use that information. Silently powerful people are not emotionless. They feel things deeply. The frustration, the anger, the hurt, the injustice of a situation, they feel all of it. The difference is that there is a beat between the feeling and the action. Just one beat. But that beat is everything. In that beat, they ask a question, not a complicated question, a simple one. Does this deserve my energy right now? Most things do not. And learning to recognize the things that do not is one of the most freeing skills a person can build. Here is a practical way to start building it. Before you respond to anything that has upset you, wait. Not forever. Just longer than your instinct tells you to. If it is a message, do not answer it for an hour. If it is a conversation, take one slow breath before you open your mouth. If it is a situation, give yourself until the next morning before you decide how to handle it. You will be shocked by how many things that felt absolutely urgent and requiring an immediate response turned out to be completely unimportant by the time you got back to them. And the ones that were still important, you handled them better because you chose your response instead of having it pulled out of you. Your non-reaction is a statement. It says, I see what you are doing and it does not reach me. That is power, genuine, unperformable power. And here is the long-term benefit that most people never consider. When you stop reacting to everything, your nervous system actually starts to calm down over time. You stop living in a constant low-grade state of alertness and defense. You stop carrying the weight of 100 unresolved reactions from conversations that should have ended clean. Your mind gets quieter. Your sleep gets better. Your thinking gets clearer. Because you are no longer spending all of that mental energy managing the aftermath of reactions you never should have had. That is not a small thing. That is the quality of your entire daily life getting better, not because anything outside of you changed, because you changed your relationship to the things outside of you. Number 4, speak with purpose or do not speak at all. Winston Churchill once said, "You will never reach your destination if you stop and throw stones at every dog that barks." Let me say the rule this section is about as directly as possible. Every word you speak is a small withdrawal from your credibility account. And like any account, if you withdraw more than you deposit, you eventually go broke. When you speak with genuine purpose, when you say something true, considered, and worth hearing, you make a deposit. People trust your words a little more. They give them a little more weight. They remember what you said. Over time, a reputation builds, a quiet one, the reputation of someone whose words mean something. But when you talk to fill space, when you give opinions on things you have not actually thought through, when you comment on situations that have nothing to do with you, when you argue about things that will not matter in a week, when you explain yourself to people who have already decided what they think, you are spending credibility you have not earned back yet. and people feel that deficit even when they cannot name it. There is a specific habit that is very common and very damaging. It is the habit of speaking to manage how other people see you in real time. Talking in a way that is designed not to communicate a genuine thought, but to shape an impression, to seem knowledgeable, to seem confident, to seem like someone who has things figured out. The problem is that people can feel the difference between someone speaking from genuine understanding and someone performing understanding. They may not be able to articulate the difference, but they feel it. And the person performing understanding consistently over time loses the trust of everyone around them without ever knowing exactly why. Silently powerful people have one question they run every potential sentence through before they say it. Not is this true? True things get said at the wrong time in the wrong way all the time and land badly. Not is this interesting? Interesting things can still be unnecessary. The question is simply this: does saying this serve something real right now? If the answer is yes, they speak, clearly, calmly, without rushing to get the words out. If the answer is no, and if you are honest with yourself, most of the time the answer is no, they hold it. They let the moment pass. They save the energy for something that actually matters. This also applies specifically to arguments. Not every argument is worth entering. Not every wrong opinion needs your correction. Not every person who says something you disagree with is waiting for you to teach them the right way to think. Some conversations are not conversations at all. They are performances. And the best thing you can do with a performance is not buy a ticket. Choose your words the way a careful person chooses where they spend their money. With full awareness that every dollar counts, every word counts, and the ones you never spent are often the ones that protected you the most. Number 5. Your calm is the most powerful thing about you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your own estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." He was a Roman emperor. He had more external pressure than almost any human being in history. Wars, political betrayal, plague, personal loss, the weight of an entire civilization on his daily decisions. And he wrote that in his private journal. For himself, not for history, not for legacy, because he genuinely believed it and genuinely needed to remind himself of it. Most people think power looks like force, like dominance, like the person who takes up the most space, speaks the most forcefully, and refuses to back down from anything. And in certain very limited situations, that kind of presence does carry weight. But real power, the kind that lasts, the kind that people remember, the kind that actually changes the direction of situations and relationships, almost always looks quiet. It looks like a person who is completely settled inside themselves while everything around them is moving fast. When you stay calm in a moment that would make most people panic or react, that calm is visible, people feel it, and it shifts the entire energy of whatever is happening. Not because calm is passive, but because calm is the opposite of being controlled. It says without a single word, nothing happening here is bigger than my ability to handle it. I have seen hard things before. This is not going to take me off center. That message reaches people before you open your mouth, and it reaches them in a place that is deeper than logic, deeper than argument, deeper than anything words could create. Here is something very practical and very true. The way your body moves when nothing is being said communicates your level of power more accurately than anything you say. How slowly or quickly you move, whether you look settled or like you are bracing for something, whether your face is neutral or tight, whether you speak at a pace that shows you are not rushing to fill time or at a pace that shows you are nervous about silence. People read all of that, constantly. Below the level of conscious thought, they are always asking, is this person okay? Are they stable? Can I trust what they are about to say? And the answers they arrive at come mostly from your body, your pace, and your energy, not your words. Calm is a practice. It is not something you either have or do not have. It is something you build slowly by choosing it in small moments. The moment you choose not to snap back at something irritating. The moment you choose to breathe before answering a question. The moment you choose to let a difficult conversation end without the last word. Each of those small choices builds something. Over time, what they build is a person who is genuinely difficult to rattle. And genuinely difficult to rattle is one of the most powerful things a person can be. Not because it makes you unreachable, but because it means that when something truly serious happens, when life brings the kind of situation that actually demands everything you have, you are still standing. You have not burned your composure on 100 things that did not matter. You have saved it. And in the moments where it counts most, it is fully available to you. That is what consistent calm actually builds. Not just a reputation, a resource. Your calm is not something you were born with. It is something you choose. Choose it right now in the comments. My calm is my power. Number 6. The person who needs less approval holds all the power. Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote, "To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment." This is the final rule, and it is the final rule not because it is the least important. It is the final rule because it is the foundation that everything else rests on. Without this one, the other 5 rules are just techniques. With this one, they become a way of living. Here is the core truth. Most of the words we should not say, the over-explanations, the defensive reactions, the unnecessary arguments, the need to correct and clarify and be understood, almost all of them come from one place: the need for other people's approval. We over-explain because we cannot stand the idea of someone misunderstanding our choices. We react defensively because we need the other person to know they were wrong to challenge us. We keep talking long after a point has been made because we need to feel like we convinced someone. We share things we should have kept private because the discomfort of holding something alone feels worse than the risk of sharing it too soon. All of that, every single bit of it, is approval seeking. And approval seeking is the engine behind most of our power leaks. Now here is the important thing to understand. Wanting to be understood is not a flaw. Wanting connection, wanting recognition, wanting to feel like the people around you actually see you. Those are deeply human needs, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with them. The problem is specifically when that need starts running your mouth before your mind can catch up. When it makes you say things in the heat of a moment that you would not say if you had 5 minutes to think. When it makes you shrink yourself to be more comfortable for other people. When it makes you spend enormous energy trying to manage how people see you instead of just being who you actually are. The shift that changes everything is this: when you become genuinely secure in who you are. Not perfectly secure, not always, but genuinely grounded in a real sense of your own worth. You stop needing every conversation to end with the other person validating your position. You stop needing every decision you make to be approved by the people around you. You stop needing every room you walk into to recognize you. And something almost paradoxical happens when you make that shift. When you stop chasing approval, people start giving it. Not because you performed for them, not because you managed their impression of you successfully, but because there is something about a person who clearly does not need your validation that makes you want to give it anyway. That settled quality, that sense of someone who is just fully comfortable being exactly who they are, is genuinely magnetic, not as a strategy, as a result. This also changes how you speak. When you are not trying to convince people to approve of you, your words become more direct, more honest, more efficient. You say what you mean without dressing it up for palatability. And the people worth having in your life respond to that directness with more trust than they ever would have given to the carefully managed version of you. The person who needs less approval does not just hold power in how they present themselves. They hold it in how they move through every single situation. They are harder to manipulate because there is no approval lever to pull. They are harder to destabilize because their sense of self is not dependent on how this particular conversation goes. They are harder to dismiss because they are not trying to impress you in the first place. That is the version of you that speaking less builds toward. Not a colder version, not a more closed-off version, a more real version, more settled, more honest, more fully there in every moment. Not because you are performing presence, but because you have stopped spending your energy on performances and have put it all back into being genuinely alive. Let us bring everything together. 6 rules, 6 different angles on the same single truth. Speak less, become more. Rule 1. Silence is not empty, it is full. Every time you hold a word back instead of releasing it out of anxiety, you add weight to the ones you eventually say. People start to listen differently when they know you do not speak carelessly. That shift in how they listen is one of the most powerful things you can create without saying a single thing. Rule 2. What you do not say protects you. Your unfinished work, your private goals, your personal struggles. Not everything needs an audience. The things you protect with silence often grow stronger precisely because they were not exposed too early. Give your vision time in private before you give it to the world. Rule 3. Stop reacting. The space between what happens and how you respond is where your power lives. Most situations that feel urgent enough to react to immediately are not. The ones that are genuinely important deserve a response you chose, not one that was pulled out of you. Rule 4. Speak with purpose or do not speak at all. Every unnecessary word spends credibility you are still earning. Build the reputation of someone whose words mean something by making sure every word you use actually does. Rule 5. Your calm is the most powerful thing about you. Not your arguments, not your logic, not your knowledge. The simple, visible fact of a person who is settled inside themselves while the world moves fast around them, that communicates power in a way that nothing else can match. Rule 6. The person who needs less approval holds all the power. When you stop needing every room to validate you, you stop leaking your energy into the endless work of impression management. What grows in its place is something real, something that does not shift depending on who is watching. Here is the one thing I want you to take from this video above everything else. Silent power is not a personality, it is a practice. It starts in small moments. One conversation where you hold back a word you normally would have said, one moment where you choose not to react, one decision you make without explaining it to people who did not ask, one day where you let the work speak instead of narrating it. Small, quiet, consistent. That is how it actually builds, not in a dramatic moment of transformation, in hundreds of tiny daily choices that most people never notice you making. You already have everything you need to start today. Not next week, not when things settle down. Today, in the very next conversation you have after this video ends. If this gave you something real, please like it right now. Share it with one person who you think needs this more than they know. Subscribe to this channel because this is exactly the kind of content we build here every single time. And drop a comment below. Tell me specifically which rule hit you the hardest and why. Not just the affirmation. Tell me the real thing. I want to hear it. Stay quiet, stay grounded, stay building. You made it to the end. That already says something about you. Seal this whole video with one last statement in the comments. I speak less, I become more.